Welcome and thank you for the invitation for this interesting community in Motorola. So thank you for that. That was really great. And it's a pleasure to be here. So I have like a roughly 35 minutes to talk about something which is very complex, interesting, and misunderstood. So can't wait. And I think we'll have one more guest, or he's just nodding to us. Okay, welcome. Okay, folks. So this is actually an interesting mistitle in our presentation, because what we think is systems thinking, not just system thinking, but more about this later. And well, my humble idea will be that to give you some tools for making sense in organization. In other words, not going nuts in organization. And test for the, okay, this way. That will be it. Okay, now makes sense. Totally doesn't make sense. Okay, who am I? So Shim already presented me, so I don't want to waste time on that. I'm trying to bring two things into one person, which is kind of confusing. So I'm also trying to be a hobbyist researcher, and I finally want to print a PhD. So I either do it today or Monday, so finger crossed. Apart from that, I'm kind of engaged in Agile community, trying to speak to other people about agility, and I'm also a conference tourist. I think that's the proper name for the person. So I'm also visiting parts of the Krakow, so thank you for having me here. Wonderful Ruchai space, so thanks for that. Okay, what we have in plan? We don't have much in plan. I have something for you for 45 minutes, and I think you have 45 minutes for discussion. So well, what I would like to have is like intertwine this. So if you guys have any questions, please just raise your hand. And we have a lot of people who are very, I think, focused on looking on you. And yeah, if you have a question, just ask immediately. We will have definitely space for that after, but I prefer rather discussion if it's possible. So I know it's very ambitious on Friday. In the raining time. Right, so because you are somewhere else, not in the room, so I was thinking to start with the exercise. Because before we talk about some complex things, it will be better to experience it. So for that, I will be asking my wonderful assistant, Shimon, who is changing the layer. Okay. To create breakout rooms, and I don't know how many people we have in the call. How much? 55. Okay, so if you can divide them into, I think, well, I don't know, 12 breakout rooms, if it's possible, or 10. But no, don't put it to the breakout rooms yet. Let me explain it what will happen. So of course, this triangle is an interesting metaphor, because I would like to have it the three of you, but with such a number of the people, we will just trying to do it in some figures of as example of the systems. So we will be just putting a breakout rooms for, I think, 2 minutes. So there's not much time for that, but in that 2 minutes, and folks here, you'll be also taking part in the triangle because you are free. That's brilliant. In that time, please try to identify your shared password or any code that you'd like to have to identify that breakout room. So it could be, I don't know, elephant, whatever. You need to agree in 2 minutes on something. I will ask you if it's clear, but it's clear enough. 50, oh, we just lost one person, so it's getting worse. Let's put it to the breakout rooms. So in the breakout rooms for 2 minutes, please find like any password that can identify your breakout rooms. Let's do it. Right. What happens here, guys, is actually we created like a system of systems, because we are in this Motorola, kind of part of the bigger system, Motorola Krakow, and we just created some subsystems, like with this very strict boundaries by a bit random. So we created the breakout room, so that is put you to the subsystem of the system of Motorola, and there was some task for that. So every subsystem has a own task, finding the password. The guys present here has a pleasure to exercise interesting other things that find to equal distance to each other. So together we created now a system of systems, which is kind of very intuitive way how to look what's just happened. So that's this example that will be built on this experience. So actually, well, we have the name of this presentation called systems thinking. What is actually the system? Of course, if we have like more people here, I'll be asked the question. There'll be some ideas, but idea is that let's have check what very wise people in the field said about the system, just to make it more still a bit abstract. So looking on some potential definitions, so one of the intuition is that if we create system is like a composition of the parts, but there's some intuition that if we just put the people here, there's something bigger happen. And the system is actually something bigger, what is happening among the parts. So there's interaction between the parts. And when we ask Donella Meadow, she unfortunately passed away, is like, there's very elegant definition, and I think I couldn't name it better, so we frequently use that definition that, well, we see some elements that are interconnected, and we are here interconnected in Motorola, well, you are mostly, that you are together belongs to the Motorola company. So there's connection, and we even, especially for this exercise previously, interconnect you in the experience. So you are the parts, and you are organized by breakout rooms or the physical boundaries of this room to achieve something as a purpose. And this purpose was given. So that was the quite simple example that the purpose of the system was visible and given, like find the password or find the distance between. So that in a nutshell is systems thinking. So you experience this, and I think I'm done. Any questions? Okay, I would expect some questions, but okay, let's go further. Okay, why is it important? Because it sounds a bit abstractly that we compose the people. And there's an interesting guy in UK who's, well, I don't want to dwell in the branches of the systems thinking, his critical system thinkings, but there's a nice phrase from him, and I think maybe that phrase resonates with you. And, well, the managers, the leaders are, a bit lured by the simple solutions to the complex problem. Sometimes we are in Agile spot. Agile is that, silver bullet for a complex organization to be efficient, fun, and great organization. And usually, not always, the simplicity or just like a simple approach is rarely rarely effective in a complex system. That's why the system thinking, the promise of system thinking is to see a bit more and understand the potential consequences of trying to intervene in the system. And rather like not focusing on this part of the organization, trying to see a bigger whole. And in case of Motorola, it's a hell of the exercise, because if you try to map the Motorola company, it's probably a big task for everyone. So that's a good emphasis what I just said, whatever is what happened. So the takeaway of Mr. Jackson is that, well, guys, don't expect simple solutions. What I'm trying to invite you by this talk, or it's like a semi-talk exercise, is that just show you that, and trying to be less naive, that you find a simple solution. System thinking is not only it's not the silver bullet, but it will give you some tools how to think in the complex environment. Speaking of, okay. Right, if we'll be in other big corporation Krakow, this example maybe resonate more, but I think CEO in Motorola also, you build the complex products, like mechanical products or, I don't know, communication products. So there's like a lot to understand. And the idea of specific thinking called, let's name it a bit reductionist, or very, I would say, trying to have analysis. You have something bigger and you try to analyze the parts. So if we take a car, we can identify many small elements or even big elements that together create a system called automobile or car. And when we dismantle them, at least crucial of them, the car won't fulfill the purpose, which is actually driving you from one place to another. Mostly in right now in Krakow, probably very difficult to have it, like from one part of Krakow to another. But usually the purpose is to like move it from one place to another. So you need a lot of elements for that. However, when you think only just as like an analysis, you try to break it down to the smaller pieces to smaller, and eventually you can lose the purpose of the car. So one of the purpose of system thinking is to also see the whole and trying to make a synthesis. And it's like a fancy word for actually making sense from all these elements to see something which is like bigger and together when you have the parts. Because if we have more interactive session, I will ask you about elements of the car. For example, what is the best engine from the car manufacturers that you know of? Okay, well, there's the idea of, okay, then we have the hybrid engine, for example. What is the best, I don't know, infotainment system in the car? From which manufacturer?
Some extra special thing, but I don't remember the name.
Okay, so we have Volvo, so we have hybrid. From which company hybrid? Toyota. Okay. How about the, I don't know, the whole steering and experience of the just driving? Well, we don't have a lot of fans of automobiles. That's not a problem. Okay, Lamborghini. So the whole idea of this exercise is that if we try to take the best parts of every manufacturer, it will be very difficult to put them together because some elements are, the fit in the system that they already have. So hybrid engine from Toyota is great when you have a Toyota car. If you try to put it to another car, it will require something special changes, or I don't know if it's like easy possible to do it. Just giving you an example that when we look from the system lenses, so coming back to the system thinking, just give you some language and tools. It could be great that we have department which is the brilliant. Let's say Agile Spot is the most brightest department of Motorola. However, when we see just like a small part and we see that the whole, the question is how optimizing just Agile Spot will benefit the whole. And can we just move it, Agile Spot and multiply what Agile Spot is doing in other departments? I don't know, you know the answer, but I have some assumptions. Okay, enough of the cars. I'm making like intentionally change to the organization because this is the topic.
The clue is that set of the best parts in the market doesn't mean you make the best.
Sure. Probably that's the policy of the All-Star Games or Polish national football team. We can pick the best parts working in other systems, and when we have them together, something doesn't work. And I don't want to open this discussion. Better not.
During the lunch.
We can discuss further, but this is the whole idea. Actually, that what matters is not the parts, but interactions. What we have like, okay, what is all about the system thinking? So I think we can invite the Peter, who is kind of like well known in the system thinking field. He wrote the book that many people claim that read, but not everyone actually. So let's hear what he is saying. Just 2 minutes, but I think he has kind of given us speaking about the complex things in the simple words, and he's a nice guy.
Well, the term systems thinking is really a mixed bag, and I use it very, very cautiously. First, both words are problematic, but the word system is the most problematic, because if you say the word system, the picture or image that pops up into most people's head is computer system, like we need a systems expert here because our system's not working. The second most common association is management control system, as it's not my fault, it's the stupid system, right? So these are the two associations that come first to people, and neither of them is what we're trying to help people understand. So whenever I'm trying to help people understand what this word system means, I usually start off by saying, are you part of a family? Everybody is part of family. Have you ever been seen in a family, people producing consequences in the family, how people act, how people feel, that aren't what anybody intends? Yep. How does that happen? Well, then people can tell their stories and think about it, but that then grounds people in not the jargon, system or systems thinking, but the reality that we live in webs of interdependence. A family is a fairly close-knit one. You can kind of see most all the key players. But still, even though we can identify maybe on a list of 10 or 15 names, here's all the key people in my immediate family, still the complexity of interactions amongst all those people is obviously such that consistently families produce outcomes that nobody wants, which is the other kind of, you might say, fundamental rationale for all of this. It's not to, quote, understand systems. That's an abstraction. It's to understand how it is that the problems that are the most vexing and difficult and intransigent that we all deal with come about. And obviously, to get a perspective on those problems that gives us some leverage and some insight as to what we might do differently.
Okay, well, so from that, should I mute? That will be working. I think it's now okay. Right. So what I can invite you after the Peter starts, like whenever you are in the family meeting or upcoming Christmas time, you can identify your system and see what are potential interrelationships and why it's so complex. And there's one important thing is that we can assume that we have a great intentions, but there's like some consequence of that system that are sometimes not very, that we are happy about it. And actually, there's also very important part in the, I would say, family therapy is this approach of the system to understand how the people are interconnected together. So it's another lens to looking on the groups of the people to understand that, assuming that, for example, every department in Motorola has the best goal, but unintentionally, if there are goals that are not synchronized, there'll be some consequences that can be affecting the whole organization, not just the department. So this is what I would like to give you a takeaway. One more, and there's a brilliant website, System Thinker, which if you want to become a system thinker, it's very easy. Just go to that website and read at least one article. No certificates are needed. But looking on this element is, I think, a bit heuristic approach to distinguish what is also one part of the system which we are talking about. So there is a collection of the things, for example. But there's a huge distinction between the system and the collection. The system has some kind of shared purpose, or there is like a shared function that they are together in the system for the function. So for example, we are now system because there's a function that we have a great time of talking about the system thinking right now, at least most of us. So we are not just random collection of the people without any shared goal. And there's interesting cartoon here that hopefully marriage is a system, not a collection. So if there becomes the collection, there's probably something that we can say that it's likely to have a divorce or any other element. It was funny when I put it here. I'm not seeing your reaction, but it still amused me. Okay. Yet another example. There's probably the picture that you've seen tons of time in the internet, seeing that some blind people touching the elephant. Does anyone seen that picture? Like some people touching the elephant? No? Oh, that's a disappointment. Okay, well, imagine that we have the one person from the back, one person from the front, and it's a real picture. It's taken in the elephant sanctuary, so the Elephants are well treated according to the to the people who say that they have them, and they cure them. So it's like it's a valid example of the good system, hopefully. So if you look from the back of the system, you can see the tail and 2 legs. But if you're touching the elephant from the front, you can touch the trunk or tusks, and you see something different. So when you want to say about elephant, well, it's actually the combination of the different perspectives. That's like a brilliant anecdote about blind people touching elephant and talking what is actually the elephant. Just Google this. It's so easy. So the one of the characteristics which I want to show you here is that there is a special element of which we should name it called holism. Holism is a bit abstract and esoteric term, but it means that we look from the whole to the situation, not just from the perspective of, for example, legs or trunk. Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, I can talk about the systems of the elephants in Thailand, but I think I can talk about the vacation during the lunch. Okay, well, how we can make sense of it, any of that, because it's really interesting. You are talking about nice metaphors. We know that the car is something more complex than just like pedals and engine. We know that looking at elephants, it could be tricky. How to make sense in the organization. So now we introduce something which I picked the most complex picture found on the internet. There is a source for that intentionally, because there's interesting metaphor called iceberg metaphor. Does anyone heard of or seen that metaphor somewhere? Okay, I'm seeing one. Oof, that's good. Otherwise, I was thinking that I am looking on different internet. So the whole idea is here. Of course, this is just a metaphor. So if you jump to the fight about this is a wrong metaphor because in reality, the iceberg looks something different in reality because of the physics. Yes, there is a simulation how the proper iceberg looks like online. We can look it after. But this is just the metaphor showing you. And usually what we see, and it's quite easy to see, is something that we can call events or something what is happening. However, what is rarely seen, and it's like a below the surface, is that there's some patterns of behavior, which is the fancy word. It actually means like behavior in time. So for example, the events, what we can see that the working remotely in the Motorola cause that on Fridays, there's like not many people in the office. And we see that presence during the time. So patterns of behavior is like drastically drop of attendance on Fridays in Motorola office. So that's the pattern. What's the structure behind it? Well, the structure behind it is actually the policy saying, oh, you can go, you can work remotely on Fridays. So that there's enabling structure for that. So it could be policy, but also it could be like agreement in your, I don't know, regulation and agreement by your management that yes, this is a great way how to be more happy at work, to stay on Fridays and working from your bed. And there's like a mental model behind it. Hopefully it's here, but I saw some pictures that it's we believe that well-being of employees is important. So I think we can give them the Friday off. Well, Friday work from home. So this is the structure of this. Okay, it's a bit, you know, when you talk about it, it's a bit trivial. So let's make an example which probably resonates from the people from Agile Spot, and I hopefully there's some people outside of the Agile Spot, because otherwise 50 people in Agile Spot will be a lot. So, and it's intentionally very small, so I will explain it in more details. So imagine the situation. Hopefully it's not your case. It's an imaginary example. I borrowed it from Cesario Ramos and from the book's Agile Organization, but I think it really resonates with every one of us. So imagine there is a I like these moments. Like, I know if it's like a signal that I say something interesting or it's like someone just left. So imagine there's this huge deadline. Like, let's assume it's January. So New Year, you need to release the big thing. And well, you just identified a lot of bugs. There's a lot of pressure to do it. So probably it's not your case, but imagine the company that there is like what we see that at the very end of the release, we just produced a bit buggy software because there was a lot of rush of that. So what we see, the pattern? Well, the pattern is that there's a lot of dependencies between the teams, so probably not your case. And there's like a blaming game. So we see over time that when people start planning, they just say that, well, let's do our part, integration will be at the end. It's like a behavior in the time. So that's the element that, well, problem is actually going down. Well, the problem of this backend is actually going down. So we observe that the quality of the software is dropping. Okay, what could be potential structure of that situation? Well, we just form the component teams. So every team is responsible for some part of the whole solution. So when they come to the integration, let's put it at the very end because of our structure, how we compose, because we want to be specialized in a very single element. And what else? Oh, there's also the structure that we founded specifically the teams together for that direction. So they have like a own manager of the component, and it's actually enforced by Agile policies that you need to work in that component to get the best knowledge and be more specialized in the components because you will get more money, for example. So there is a structure that helping you to be in the silos. So the mental model is, well, in order to be very effective, you need to focus very narrowly about your specialization because you are doing the complex things. And it will give you the best from the company. So that's, in the nutshell, is like a potential application of the tools. So whenever you come to your organization saying, oh, we have, for example, some incident, or we have the situation that, for example, during the autumn, we face a lot of absences. You can try to use that tool just to spot, okay, if there are some events, how this behavior looks in time, what are enabling or structure for that? What is actually in our system to spot in terms of policy, organization structure, team composition, policies that make that situation possible, and what is our beliefs behind it? All right. One tool to use in a system. And after this long and a bit boring exercise, let's have the interesting quote for someone who is well-known and famous, and we trust them. So, Edward Deming probably resonates from some folks of Agile Spot. He nicely said that a bad system will beat a good person every time. So, if you're a great person, but you end up in a bit, I would say, crappy company, which is not the case of Motorola, it's recorded, regardless of your efforts, probably you won't fight the system. It's a rare chance in the history how to break the whole system, and we are not in the history lesson about Mahatma Gandhi, for example. So something completely different. Because the whole intention of this talk is to give you more practical tools, how to make sense in the organization. You know already one model, how to use it. It's an iceberg, so you can see what is visible, what is not visible, and check your assumption. The whole big thing in the systems thinking is thinking in loops. And some maybe people from Agile Spot, they try to draw the loops or saw some subloops, like causal loop diagrams. Probably somewhere in the internet, there was something. I can trust me, I'm an expert. So let's see the linear situation. Sales are down. Of course, it's abstract case, it's not the case of that company. So we need to increase our marketing promotions. All right, so we put some investment in the marketing. Okay, that will bring more orders. Yay. So sales are up. We are happy. If the sales are up, our backlogs are rising because people want to more things. We have more things to do. Sales are down because we are busy to do the things. So again, marketing promotions. We can look at the situation less linearly, but in the loops. So seeing the potential interrelationship here. And this is what system thinking really invite you to think in the loops, to think in the what is actually the balancing there, what is the reinforcing there. So we have like a nice loops here. So sales are up, marketing promotions, order increase, sales up. Nice reinforcing loop. What is balancing that? It's actually this that, well, the more orders we have, the more things to do in the backlogs. So it's also the thing that is rising here. So this is what invitation for thinking is actually, well, there's a circularity in our life. And whatever is happening, something is rising, there's a potential force for that, and it's like somewhere related. And if we don't see the, for example, the loop in our environment, means it's a part of bigger loop. And I will skip all the beautiful causal loop diagrams that you can find on the internet. People are spending their year careers on developing the huge loops. And imagine that trying to find this through this tool, more complex situation in social science. It's really interesting. If anyone is interested, the internet is more than welcoming you to try it. Okay, that was a bit like a interesting example, but we are not in marketing here. We are Agilist. At least in Agile sport, we believe that Agile is fun. So let's assume, probably it's not the case of this company, of course, that some of the part of the solutions are behind the schedule. In other companies, people are not always meet the deadlines. That's like, so, well, if there's some parts are not according to the plan, it raises the management attention. So it's an interesting situation that, well, the more we are behind, the more attention of the management is raised. Probably you saw that, or your colleagues told you about other companies that it will happen. So imagine that there's like a big release at the end of the year. We see already that there's no chance that will happen. The year, eventually, what will happen? Well, you have more review meetings and more status meetings. So because of that, so it's not only like 2 weeks review, but now because of the time pressure, you have every week review, every day status check with the management because they need to have a control to see what's happening. The people who are trying to provide the status are actually need some time for reporting the problems. So it's actually delay the working on the real work, which is behind the schedule. So this example of thinking in the loops is one of the archetypes in the system, and that's way too much to go into details but what will happen, what the systems thinking can help us here is actually to see that some immediate good intentions, because I'm not saying the management is wrong, this is not the case, but because of some situation, there are unintended consequences in the long term, and this unintended consequences can be seen here. So what systems thinking is inviting us to do is to have the second order thinking, which is the fancy name in English, means that we not only see the immediate things, but we are reflecting what may be the potential cause of that immediate things. All right, well, that's probably realistic for the other companies. Here's everything fine, so I will go to the next example. One of the things, of course, is that people are trying to look behavior of the time, and here's the example of the rising behavior of the time, which is in time you have more attention. So you're just going to see like a small break in the talk, yet another famous quote from the very famous person from the system thinking, which is less famous than the previous one. And this is a guy, which is called Stafford Beer. I always mispronounce his name because of the bird that he has. There's an interesting concept of that the purpose of the system is what it does. So you probably try to figure out, okay, what's the purpose of some company? What is the purpose of Agile Spot? What is the purpose? Well, you can have this declarative purpose, saying, oh, our purpose, and okay, let's pick another example. Let's say pick another community in different galaxy. Our purpose is to share the knowledge and invite people to interesting talks like that. However, what it does is actually organize the meetings. So this is also the purpose that can happen, which we just observe the system. And after all is that what is interesting to see is, okay, we can have some declarative goals, but also when we look at this, when we see what the system is doing, we can see something a bit different. One of the examples is schools. It's, I think, a good example because probably most of us have some negative experience from the school. So we can think that the purpose of the school is to, I don't know, educate individuals to be great citizens. But when we go deeper and when we, for example, see what is the system about, is actually also the part that some teachers need to have some job. They need to keep the system stable, and they don't want to change too much because otherwise it will be very difficult to run. Right. So I know we are running off the time like hell, so I'm speeding up as much as I can. So you know some tools, and subtitle of this talk is actually tools to not get mad and sad in the organization. So you already have the iceberg, you have some loops, and you can have metaphor elephant. Would you like to have some more? And this encouraging enthusiasm will say that yes, let's do it. So I'll give you one more, and this is actually something that we can do together. If we have like roughly next 5 minutes, I am looking to Shimon. Okay, so I'll give you one of the simplest tool for the system, and it's actually come from this soft. Well, let's forget. It's come from soft system approach. So it's very, let's say, less mathematical and less complex than causal loop diagrams. So example is, let's set some boundary of the system. The boundary is actually that we can. How said, like the boundary of this room is the walls, the boundary of this meeting is Agile spot, the boundary of our organization here is Motorola Krakow, or whatever the entity it is. Well, we can identify some actors of the system. Of course, we can try to identify all, but it's probably not possible, but try to identify the actors, and then we can draw the relationship between them. And this relationship between them can provide some feedback or information, so influence. Or, I know, that interest, politics, love, hate. There are many maps that we can draw, of course. And then you can add something, it's just like a positive thing or negative. So it's very simple, like arrows with plus and minus sign. Then you can make some reflection. Okay, you draw together something, so you can make a reflection. And you will see some interesting connections, and try to find the spot that you can find intervention. In the plain English, it's like to say plain Polish. It's just to find where you can do something to make some changes, or experiments, because we are in Agile spot, so where you can find some small experiment. That's basically the whole idea behind it. So we can do it together. How to keep, for example, Agile spot full, I guess. Still. Sorry, I have Neuland, so let's do it professionally. Oh, it's a much better. Agile spot. How to make it cool, as it is right now. So how to keep it making cool. Who are the actors here? Yes, we just lost 10 people, so it's okay. It's like any ideas who can be an actor of the Agile spot? Speakers. Okay. Who else? Organizers. Some participants. Sponsors. Technical stuff. Okay. Okay, let's see. IT tech. I would love to say catering and any other facilities, but probably in the future. One more? That's cool. We just lost 3 people with that question. So, okay, I will ask a last question because probably we can lose more participants. If there's no more question, we can see what. So we see, for example, that organizer can influence the speakers, and speakers can influence the participants, and organizer can also influence the participants as well, because they said, well, if you are not coming to the Agile spot, you are not active in the organization. And of course, organizers would like to see if they can, the sponsors can bring something for the organizers and hopefully for the speakers as well. And we need, of course, the contact from the IT here to prepare everything what is possible. So for example, we want to see some potential interventionists to asking more interesting speakers, like here, can bring more participants and have the more participants on the call. That's the simplest idea how to do it together. Much more time, we'll go into the details. One more tool to make you confused is actually think about the organization. And organization is a very complex system, but I will give you the 5 elements, which is very interesting to see, to make sense in the organization. So for example, if you think about the Motorola and Krakow, there's some kind of strategy and direction for that unit. For sure, it has some structure. That structure reflects some influence and power. There's some processes, like, for example, bring the visitors to the unit. There's some reward system saying, if you come to the office, it's good. If you're not coming, there will be penalty in terms like a long term. It's okay that you are work from remote on Friday. And you have some people, and you attract some people because of that. And everything is intertwined. And it's a way to look at the organization because the elements actually influence each other. So if you want to, for example, implement Agile, just as a process, saying, hey, now we'll be Agile, and here's the process, and you are not taking care about the rest, it's actually probably not a very lasting change that can happen in the organization. So one more tool for you to reflect and go deeper. You can Google this on the internet, just after the elephant that I mentioned previously. There's a probably question in your head, or declining number of the people on the call. How to start? Well, start wherever you are. And quoting one more interesting person, it's like intertwined, to manage a system effectively, you might focus on the interactions of the parts rather than their behavior taken separately. So try to find in your organization any interactions because they matters. Still not very actionable example, so well, let's say anyway. Well, you can use the system thinking as a communication tool. You can draw something together. You can see how we understand the reality. We can together draw the iceberg. We can together other tools that I mentioned. You can try to current problem. And there's a gift for free for me. Try to map the problem, not the whole system. Because when you start mapping the whole Motorola, you probably will never end up, or maybe you can end up sometime. But try to map something which is actually your problem and think about the boundaries. You can have some models for that. And what is more even promising, you can try to engage people who own something, who can make a change on something, and not just saying, hey guys, there's a great tool from Kuba or any other system thinkers. Please use it. It won't work that way. Try to understand their problem, help them visualize, and use that tool to help them to understand the problem, not just give them the tool, because otherwise it's just a tool. And identify the patterns where you are, find the leverage points, experiment. However, and the last famous quote of this talk is, you cannot control the system. Of course, if you like, or try to completely figure it out, because it is insane. However, you can try to dance with them. And dance with them is about how to find some patterns, leverages, understand. One saying is, if you won't understand the system unless you try to break it. Don't go that far. Of course, there's tons of the books that I would like to have read. This is the famous book of Peter that no one is reading. If you want to have some more about system, mapping. There's a book from Donella, which is really cool. There's a great book about Cesario and Ilya, if you want to be more narrow to the organization that pretends to be agile. Some free elements, system thinker website, society, system dynamics, many more. That's all from me. Think more in systems. This is the end.